Share few thoughts on women and human rights. Perhaps you may have gone through human rights and rights of women as well. So before I'm going to deal with this subject, first of all, let me congratulate all of you for taking some time to be a part of this a program which is being held online. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Kelsi.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you. See, there are certain challenges which are unexpected when it comes to the knowledge of rights of women, country like India. There are as many as legislations which are outspoken for the protection of human rights of women, country like India. However, although we have had as many as specific legislations, the issues are remained. Then the first question is, what is to be done and what ought not to be done? How exactly the problems can be resolved and where exactly you have come from? That has to be looked upon to understand each one of them in the society as such. I believe in one of the statements given by Leo Tolstoy, wherein he says that one of the first conditions of the happiness is to bridge the gap between man and nature. That shall not be broken. It means that you have to be natural when you are listening to understand human rights all about. You know that the human rights which are expressed in various conventions shall also be actually looked upon, and you have to verify them. This is one thing. On the other hand, when it comes to the knowledge of the Constitution of India, wherein it has been outspoken in various articles, be it Article 14, which talks about right to equality, as you have already been known. Like should be treated alike, unlike should not be treated alike. Equality before law and equal protection of law, they should go hand in hand. Even in otherwise manner, Article 15, 16, and rest of them, which are outspoken with you to understand the problems of women, country like India. So what are the challenges that are actually being faced by women? Although we have the Constitution of India, some people, they read Constitution, they are not at all understanding. Some people, they read the Constitution, they know how to understand it. When it comes to knowledge of interpretation of the Constitution, it's very difficult to understand it, because understanding Constitution is not so simple. It requires a lot of drill. It's not totally a drama or a story or an actually novel. Constitution, which talks about socio-economic and cultural aspects of a human being in India, that has to be looked upon. You just look into the preamble of the Constitution, wherein it has outspoken. It starts with we the people of India. That word is actually derived from American Constitution, you know very well. Similarly, the we the people is actually well noticed in UN Charter 1945, wherein it starts with we the people of United Nations determined to save the succeeding generation from the scourge of war. On the other hand, when it comes to the knowledge of the preamble of this UN Charter 1945, in which you have already been signed, and you are one of the members of United Nations organization. Since then, it is debatable with you to promote, increase human rights and fundamental freedoms without distinction with race, sex, language, and religion as well. This has to be looked upon to understand the rights of women. Lots of responsibilities are shouldered even on economic and social council, which is one of the organs of United Nations organization. So therefore, first of all, you have to understand where exactly human rights have come from. It means that when somebody is actually crying at home, mother should know why he is crying. That's very important. It means if somebody is actually crying in India, that the state should know why he is crying. That's very important. You know, of all these examples, you have to understand what is all about the concept of state responsibility. What is state responsibility? How exactly state responsibility shall be looked into? Here, first of all, you have to understand draft articles on state responsibilities for internationally wrongful acts, 2001, which was actually drafted by 5 special reporters of International Law Commission, wherein it has been outspoken on the subject matter of the state responsibility. If a state violates an international obligation, then the state responsibility would come into picture. That's all about the system as well. You cannot escape from the clauses of the state responsibility. These are the things which shall also be actually looked upon when you are listening to understand human rights. Basically, human rights are nothing but natural rights, inalienable, instrumental, indivisible. You cannot devise them. You cannot transfer them from one to one. They are fundamental sometimes, intrinsic, instrumental. They are inherent in our society. No state or constitution take away these rights. So such a kind of an autonomy has already been given to the concept of human right. So in this way, first of all, you have to have a look on where exactly human rights have been derived. Look at India's perspective. In India, if rather I would say, before passing of Human Rights Act 1993, we couldn't find concept of human right. It was possible when you could sign and ratify 2 main conventions. International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights 1966, then International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights 1966. These are the 2 main conventions which were actually concluded in 1966 with a view to promote and encourage human rights of these individuals all over the world. So therefore, when you are listening to understand rights of women, there are so many rights which are actually given to. Why you have given? Why states are actually guaranteed certain rights to women, country like India? My answer is very simple. It is because of historical injustice and practical denials. Women are in fact possessing as many as rights, country like India. This is very crucial to understand what are our human rights, especially in India. Just look into part 3rd and part 4th of the Constitution. In part 3rd of the Constitution, you deal with fundamental rights. Whereas in case of part 4, which is actually emphasizing on directive principles of state policies. Of course, there are certain controversial issues between fundamental rights and directive principles of state policies. Some say that directive principles of state policies cannot be enforceable. They are supposed to be called as mild laws, and they have no any forcible measures. This is what you say. However, when you just look into the cases decided by Honorable Supreme Court of India based on Article 32 of the Constitution of India, you will be wondered how exactly Supreme Court of India has already been interpreted the rights which are guaranteed under Part 3 of the Constitution as well. In a silver linings, you can also react even on directive principles of state policies. And you can say it sometimes these rights are supposed to be called as, soft rights, which are not supposed to be enforceable. So these are the safe cornered and sweeping statements you have when you are listening to understand the dichotomies between fundamental rights and directive principles of state policies. Now, my question is very simple. When you are listening to understand rights of human country like India, these are the challenging issues. How will you overcome? And where exactly you can solve the problems? This is very important. What kind of kriya and karma you have? Kriya for yourself, karma for others. You know very well, better than me. One should have certain obligations towards others. That's very important. As I said, if somebody is actually crying at home, that the mother should know why he is crying. That's very important. In nutshell, I can say that if the family is good, nation will be all right. When the nations are good, you can expect world peace. So world peace cannot be bought anywhere. World peace cannot be bought in Mall of Mysore, elsewhere in easily or mega stores. The peace can be restored in a family. That's very important. If the family is good, nation is good, the nations are good, you can expect world peace. This is very important from the point of view of understanding the rights of women at the higher level as such. And you know that charity begins at home. I must say, being a lawyer, violence begins at home. Look at domestic violence. Where exactly it has come from? What are the reasons for domestic violence? How exactly domestic violence can be put in a country like India? So, with a view to understand domestic violence, series of cases have been actually brought in even before, what shall I say, family courts. So such being the case, how exactly the law is actually responsive with a view to understand the rights of women. You know that rights are actually derived from value of utility. This is what J.S. Mill has already been outspoken. Even in otherwise manner, Carl von Savigny in Germany, Henry Maine in the United Kingdom, they say that your rights have come from cultural variables. It depends on soil. It depends on, the way in which you are living over there. That's very important. I must share with you. This is my hypothetical answer. I'm just sharing here by saying that if you are close to high temperature, high fertility will come. When you have got high fertility, population will be increased. When you have got population, problems are many. So, therefore, you have to understand certain conflict resolutions here and there. What kind of conflict resolutions we have? That's very important. Whether egg is first, hen is first, plant is first, military necessity is first, humanity is first, or military necessities first. These are the major world crises you have when you are listening to understand women and human rights as well. Look at Eurocentric approach. How exactly women are protected in European countries? Second, US-centric approach. Look at how exactly women are well protected in Latin American states. This is what Eurocentric approach, US-centric approach, they are outspoken. How about Asia-Afrocentric approach? Asia-Afrocentric approach. See, in almost all the issues you can find in these countries, because there are many reasons why these problems are many. So therefore, you have to understand, first of all, the geographical issues. Through geographical issues, you can understand. This is one thing. On the other hand, there are as many as conflict resolutions to overcome some of the issues of women country like India. Take for an example, my wife cannot ask me to have mother room. How can I have mother room? I am biologically imbalanced. You cannot direct me to have mother room. Nobody has actually moral right to have a mother room in otherwise manner to men. So you have to understand. So what is to be done? How exactly the conflict resolutions shall be looked upon. This is very important. On the other hand, I have gone through Chinese philosophy. Look at Lao Tse and Confucius philosophy. They say that nobody is actually stronger. I mean to say, nobody can be stronger by exploiting others. All are equally footing. Like should be treated alike. Unlike should not be treated alike. Equality before law and equal protection of law, they should go hand in hand. That's our concern to be spoken of. So therefore, when you are listening to understand rights of women or the human rights of women, series of international covenants have been actually outspoken. Look into UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, which was actually drafted by John Humphrey of Canada, who has outspoken on various rights like civil rights, political rights, economic rights, solidarity rights, and rest of them. We need all of them for our own survival, without which you may not be called as if a human being, country like India. So with these a few aspects, if rather I would say, we need peace in a family. We don't want war. We don't want such kind of conflicts in a situation as this. What is peace? Peace, it does not mean it is an absence of war. Peace means presence of justice. This is very important. We need justice. Justice could be distributive or corrective. Why people are knocking the doors of judiciary? They need justice. Why they have come to the court? They have come to the court to seek justice. They have not come to the court by saying that which law is actually supreme in life, whether municipal law is supreme or international law is supreme. None of their business. So therefore, you have to understand each one of them. When you are listening to understand certain dichotomies between municipal law, I mean to say national law and international law as such. There is a contribution made by international law in this regard. So that has to be acknowledged when you are listening to understand rights of women, country like India as such. In 1988, we had a Bangalore Declaration. The idea of Bangalore Declaration was to transfer international human rights law into the municipal law. Municipal. Thanks to the people who could attend that meeting and share their views with you to understand the transformation of international human rights law into the municipal law as such. So this is very serious when you are listening to understand human rights of women, country like India as such. See, human rights are highly transcendental in character. Transcendental. They need to be looked upon. You cannot ignore them as long as you are running with fundamental rights which are guaranteed under Part 3 of the Constitution as well. You have got your own reasoning by analogy by saying that all fundamental rights are human rights, but all human rights are not fundamental. This is a plain statement, or rather, I would say, it's a sweeping statement or a safe corner statement. Being a lawyer in the field of human rights as well, I can say that a person who is actually standing before any human being shall be called as a human being. This is very important. You have to understand categorically. If somebody has got some problems, you have to respond it. That's very important. You cannot ignore them. Therefore, you have to understand karma. What kind of karma you have? Karma means one owes duty towards others. This is very important. Then what kind of duties or obligations you have towards others? This is very important. And moreover, if something has gone wrong in a given society, there is as many as crises against women. They could be gang rape, marital rape, or normal rape, or eve-teasing, molestation, harassments at working places. Look at all these issues and challenges. And who has to bell the cat? And you cannot say in otherwise manner who has to bell the cat. You have to catch the cat, bell the cat, and understand where exactly it's moving. That's very important. So therefore, first of all, you have to understand where exactly you have come from. Then only you appreciate yourself, where are you going? This is very important. On the other hand, of course, it is highly philosophical. I agree with you. However, when you deal with reasoning by analogy, obviously, philosophical foundations are also helpful with you to understand the human rights as well. Look at the contribution of natural law theory, wherein Thomas Aquinas has outspoken on the divine law. What kind of divine law you have? You know that divine law is more superior than man-made law. Sometimes you may be finding some errors in man-made law, whereas divine law is higher order. It is highly natural. So all natural rights have become human rights. This is very important. Of course, there are series of criticisms leveled against the natural law. I agree with you. However, natural law has come from law of nature, divine law. That's supreme in eye of law. So therefore, you have to understand how, in what manner problems can be resolved, especially in connection to rape, eve-teasing, molestation, harassment, that to sexual harassment at working places are concerned. So therefore, you know that violence is among the most severe human rights violations, and women are often attacked for sexual reasons, even on account of their gender. These are the major issues you have. On the other hand, under international treaties such as Covenant on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, governments have a legal obligation to protect women from violence, to promote human rights of all women, and to ensure their economic, legal, social, and political empowerment. Lots of responsibilities are shouldered on a state to render justice to these people. I mean to say, women who are highly marginalized, weaker, and retracted in the society as such. Look at their vulnerability. Unimaginable proportion of vulnerability you have, especially in India. When you just look into the world arena, there are as many as statistics you have to look into. Over 500,000 women continue to die each year from pregnancy and childbirth related causes. The rates of HIV infection among women are rapidly increasing. Among those 15 to 24 years of age, young women now constitute the majority of those newly infected, in part because of their economic and social vulnerability. On the other hand, gender-based violence kills and disables as many as women between the age of 15 and 44 as cancer. More often than not, perpetrators go unpunished. Unpunished. But we can say that if X happens, then Y ought to happen. If X commits a crime, he should be prosecuted. This is our dual relations. You should prosecute them mercilessly. So this is what law is actually emphasizing accordingly. Look at worldwide, women are twice as likely as men to be illiterate. As a consequence of their working conditions and characteristics, a disproportionate number of women are actually impoverished in both developing and developed countries. Despite some progress in women's wage in 1990s, in fact, women still earn less than men, even for similar kinds of work as well. But law says equal pay for equal work. Look at all these statistics. And where exactly you can find justice that would be rendered to these vulnerable groups or marginalized sections of the society. Therefore, marginalized sections of the society. That you should understand this. And many of the countries that have ratified CEDA, you know that Convention on Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, still have discriminatory laws governing marriage, land, property, and inherent as well. You don't find such kind of protection as well. Look into the UN Charter 1945. The protection of human rights nowhere defined. The human rights protection can be done by a state which has already been signed UN Charter 1945. This is very important. You have to understand it. On the other hand, mere signatory to the UN Convention is not sufficient. You have to ratify them. Compulsorily, you have to ratify them. This is what the Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties 1969 is very clear about the ratification of the treaties. Treaties in the sense that agreements between states as well. See, all these obligations are going to be created on the basis of agreements between states. This is what Article 2, Paragraph 1 of Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties, which has outspoken on what are all the treaties among the nations as well. So, in this way, you have to understand certain, coordinates which are helpful to understand the rights of women as well. In addition, the new challenges for women's empowerment and gender equality that have emerged over the past decade, such as feminization of epidemic, formalization of migration, and increasing of trafficking on women need to be more effectively addressed. Look at trafficking, bonded labor, teasing, molestation, Look at the malnutrition level, especially in India, as far as the report submitted by UNICEF, around 5,000 kids, they die every day because of malnutrition level. Who's this responsibility? You can put a fundamental question. Entire civil society is responsible to pay for it. That's my reasoning by analogy. When you are listening to understand these issues are concerned. Look at some cases decided by Honorable Supreme Court in connection to rape, especially Nirbaya's case. It's a glaring example. Delhi has become, rapist place. Why Delhi has become a rapist place? What are the reasons? You have to find out. Go for further research and understand what kind of reasons we have in connection to gang rapes, country like India as such. Look at Vishaka versus state of Rajasthan's case. Perhaps we may have gone through. This was a case decided by Honorable Supreme Court in 1997 as such. So in this particular case, the court held that there shall not be in any manner of sexual harassment at working places. This is what Supreme Court of India has already been given some guidelines. What is all about harassment at working places. Just to share with you, being a lawyer, when we were just deciding this case, we couldn't find any definition in India. And moreover, India was one of the member countries of CEDA, Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, 1979. So it was because of these reasons we could be able to incorporate such kind of international human rights law into the municipal assets. I mean to say that national law as such. So with these a few aspects, if rather I would say, obviously, no matter however you may have had some categorical issues and challenges, it is one of the responsibilities on the part of a state to render justice. This is one thing. This requires acting to prevent all forms of violence, reforming discriminatory laws and policies, and ensuring that survivors of violence have access to justice. It means that access to justice is one among human rights. This is what V.R. Krishnaiyer has already been outspoken in many cases as well. Even in otherwise manner, Justice Anand, former chairperson of National Human Rights Commission, has outspoken by saying that poverty that itself is violation of human rights as well. How, in what manner the violence can be put an end? Where exactly you're going to knock the doors of judiciary? This is very serious. You have to understand it. On the other hand, we are all actually entitled to human rights when you have become a human being. These include right to live free from violence and discrimination, to enjoy the highest attainable standards of physical and mental health, to be educated, to own property, to vote, to earn an equal wage. These are the rights guaranteed to women in nutshell. But across the globe, many women and girls still face discrimination on the basis of sex and gender. Gender inequality underpins many problems which disproportionately affect women and girls, such as domestic and sexual violence, low pay, then lack of access to education and inadequate health care. These are the major crises we have in India. For many years, women's rights movements have fought hard to address this inequality. But these problems are remain. And who is answerable to these questions? And who's the responsibility? state should take care of everything. There are certain obligations shouldered on the state. The state should decide what is to be done. Through research, advocacy, campaigning, in fact, Amnesty International pressures the people in power to respect women's rights. So therefore, certain agencies have come, like non-governmental organizations, intergovernmental organizations have come through with you to overcome problems of women all over the world. So therefore, here, when you're listening to understand these, obviously, one could respond it. This is one thing. On the other hand, you just look into world crisis, especially in Syria, Yemen. Look at ongoing crisis in Georgia, Ukraine, Jordan, and rest of them. Especially during war situation, women are targeted. So, who's this responsibility is all about during war situation? To overcome war crime, we have established ICC, that's International Criminal Court. This court was actually constituted and established on the basis of a Rome Statute 1998. In fact, India is not one of the member countries of this statute. See, that therefore, I'm just insisting the central government put a signature to this Rome Statute. Let's see tomorrow what is to be done. If something has gone wrong, especially crimes against humanity, war crimes, genocide, or crimes against peace, obviously, you can bring it to the notice of International Criminal Court to restore peace on this Earth planet as well. So at least someone should be there to help these people who have come from little background as well. This is very important from the point of view of understanding them. Apart from these international covenants, we have passed as many as specific legislations which are addressing the issues of women, country like India. We have Domestic Violence Act 2005, Immoral Traffic Act 1956, the Commission of Sati Act was actually passed, the Sexual Harassment of Women at Working Place 2013 we have, then Indecent Representation of Women Act 1986. Apart from these specific legislations, we have Indian Penal Code and Indian Evidence Act. These are the specific legislations which are highly helpful with you to protect, promote, and encourage human rights of these women are concerned. Along with the continuity of these specific legislations, we have gone through certain guaranteed applications under Article 14, 15 clause 1, 15 clause 3. Under DSP, we have Article 39, 39A, and rest of them. So these are the various measures have been actually looked upon with you to understand the problems of women as well. See, apart from these constitutional measures, we have had some legal measures. Take for an example, Equal Remuneration Act 1976, then Maternity Benefit Act 1961 as well. 1960, the Maternity Benefit Act as all these legislations are in fact highly helpful with you to understand the problems of a women country like India. This is one thing. When it comes to the knowledge of health issues, look at certain principles which are expressed on the basis of Supreme Court and High Court's decisions. Take for example, polluter pays principle, sustainable development. The need intergenerational equity, precautionary principle, all in all have come through with a view to understand issues and challenges of women as well. This is one thing. On the other hand, in 1986, in fact, we were established so many designed approaches which are on par with right to development. What is the right to development? This is what Amartya Sen has emphasized. Right to development is nothing but economic development. This is one thing. On the other hand, in 2000, new millennium goals came forward. Why new millennium goals came forward? New millennium goals came forward with a view to understand right to develop. Similarly, in 2015, there was an action plan through Sustainable Development Goals 2015. We have had an action plan at the international level. How exactly these action plans are helpful to overcome problems of women in a country like India? This is very, very important. You have to analyze them. You have to interpret them, through which you can understand how, in what manner problems can be resolved yet. So with these a few aspects, if rather I would say, obviously, one can say that the protection of human rights of these vulnerable groups can be found on the basis of a national, regional, and international level as such. Look at in Latin American states, similarly in European countries, or else in Asia, Afro-centric approaches, one and the same. Problems are one and the same. You should see here and there, no matter. But the way in which you have outspoken on the rights are supposed to be looked upon once again, and there is a room for discussing all these issues. You are a better judge what is right and what is wrong. As I said at the outset, you cannot be a stronger by exploiting others. And nobody is actually superior or inferior. All are equally footing. Just look into Article 1 of UDHR 1945 or 48. The UDHR 1948, which has outspoken on like should be treated alike and like should not be treated like as both men and women. They born equal. This has to be looked upon categorically. On the other hand, as long as you are dealing with these issues, so long you shall not be forgotten on conflicting interest among the nations. This is very important. Take for example, I'll give you an illustration. Wolf is actually standing before the sheep. Wolf is demanding sheep. Hey sheep, I have a right to food. I want to kill you. Then sheep replied politely, my friend, however you may have had right to food, I have a right to life. You cannot kill me. How controversial is it? And you cannot direct wolf, go and have green grass or leaves, since you are living in thick forest, because it is highly imbalanced, biologically imbalanced. So therefore, with you to shut the mouth of these issues, you could share on the basis of Charles Darwinian philosophy as such. So these are the major conflicting resolutions we have when it comes to the knowledge of the rights of women as well. This is one thing. On the other hand, when you are making some policies at the national and international level, you shall not be an artificial. An artificial life should be condemned. This is what Confucius and Lao Tse philosophy, they have outspoken. You shall not be an egoistic, because an egoistic person will never ever die, because he has no human body. So I mean to say, whenever you want to go for making some policies at the national level, you shall not be an artificial and emotional. First of all, you should see the problems of women, country like India. Otherwise, these problems will be continued. Tomorrow, your daughter or granddaughter may speak on these issues. How long? Okay, as long as you are living on this earth planet. So therefore, I must insist you to go for in-depth study on the issues and challenges of these women. See, these women shall not be neglected in any holistic and integrated society as well. If you have got some questions, I'll be able to give an answer rather than just narrating from other side. Over to you. Do you have some questions so that I can answer you? Hello?
So, what may be the pragmatic solution for solving these issues of women? Sir? Because by law, by enforcing the law, we can't solve completely 100%. We can hope.
Correct.
So, maybe the pragmatic solution, sir.
See, we need to have, cultural change in the society. I think that is better. One should understand each other. Cultural change is one of the best policies, if rather I would say. As you have already been expressed, sometimes you may not be in a position to resolve the matter before the court of law, isn't it? Court will be actually will be looking on the basis of evidences produced. So therefore, instead of just focusing on litigations, we don't want to have cultural change in the society. That's very important. Cultural change in the society is one of the best mechanisms, if rather I would say. Of course, you can bring it to the notice of National Commission for Women, or as NHRC is there, National Human Rights Commission we have. At the state level, we have State Human Rights Commission. At the district level, there are some committees. No matter, there are as many as agencies have come through with a view to protect, promote, and encourage the human rights of these vulnerable groups, none other than women. Beyond this, we need to have cultural change in the society. I think that would be fine. The peace can be restored.
Thank
Without
you, sir.
peace, it's very difficult. Some more questions? You are liberal to ask some questions.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
So what are the problems raised due to the non-implementations of sex education and the gender sensitivity among the children?
Okay, that's actually a good question you have asked. Uh, so it's a highly sensitive issue. If rather I would say, sometimes it may not be possible to resolve these issues based on the law alone. The entire civil society is responsible to pay for it. This is one thing. On the other hand, what is sex education? How will you understand it? Where exactly it has come from? How will you look into? These are the perennial or comprehensive questions you would be having. I believe you.
Yes.
However, it should be highly natural. It should be highly natural. Look at how plants and trees are growing. They are growing naturally. They don't get any help from anybody. They're not artificial. They're growing naturally. Similarly, human beings should grow naturally. You shall not be an artificial. When you become an artificial, problems are plenty in the society as such. So therefore, gradually you are going to learn what is all about sex education as such. Because it is highly sensitive and natural as well. So therefore, at the elementary level, you cannot teach, even in otherwise manner. As long as you are growing so that you can get such kind of an education through nature, divine law, that is the supreme, than man-made law as such. You cannot decide everything on the basis of man-made law. The divine law is also superior to others. This is one thing. On the other hand, look into the rule of law. What is rule of law? Rule according to law. Nobody is actually above the law. So in this context, first of all, you have to understand rule of law, rule of jungle, then divine law, man-made law, law properly so called, law improperly so called, what are inner behavior and external behavior. So all these things shall be verified when you are listening to understand a human being, through which gradually you can teach students accordingly. So what is sex education? It's a fundamental question. How will you educate them? How will you educate them? Hello? Hello?
You're audible, sir.
Yeah. How will you educate them beyond law? They can learn gradually as long as they are living on this earth planet. Isn't it? Based on chromosomes and hormones. Nobody would be there in the hearts of others. There are four walls which are supplying blood to other organs for survival. So therefore, you have to understand on the basis of the natural law theory. That is the supreme and higher law. Through natural law, you can understand what is all about sex education as such. This is one thing. And as I've already been answered to first question, that there shall be cultural change in the society. Through cultural change, you can overcome. Some more questions? Hello? Some more questions you can ask.
Hello.
Yeah, tell me.
So rather than this is a question, it is just an observation, though. A learned population, learned people, they know that these are the laws,
Mm.
and there is a right to justice also. But the amount of time which goes in accessing those laws and reaching to the justice, actually at times, majority of the time, it demotivates the people, and the way the law, which is being, portrayed, does not encourage people to access it.
Okay.
So what is your opinion on this, sir?
See, due to backlog of cases, sometimes it happens. I agree with you. There is a process when you are reaching justice. Directly, you cannot have your judgment. There are some steps to be outspoken through which you can seek justice. It could be either distributive or corrective of justice as well. Of course, no matter. Your law is actually looking as if, crude oil, whereas justice is a refined oil. With a view to have a refined oil, you need to wait before the court of law. And there are certain steps. Directly cannot, punish a wrongdoer. We have to observe everything before the court of law. See, this is one thing. On the other hand, of course, no matter, justice delayed is denied. I agree with you. However, you cannot decide a case in a different ways. It requires a lot of procedure. Look at CRPC, Criminal Procedure Code, and CPC as well, Civil Procedure Code 1908. There are series of steps with you to seek justice before the court of law. This is one thing. Otherwise, it's very difficult to reach out whatever you are expecting before the court of law. So, in this way, first of all, you have to understand the theory of justice in his John Rawls, who has outspoken on the theory of justice as well. There are so many theories with you to understand justice before the court of law as well. This is one thing. Why people are actually knocking the doors of judiciary, they need justice. They need justice. So while you are actually reaching that expectations, you should render accordingly. Something shall not be occurred in different way. So in this context, when you are expecting good justice before the court, you have to wait till the completion of the process as well. There is a procedure established by law. You have to understand over there. Both substantive law and procedure law should go hand in hand. Look at procedural law. You have CRPC and CPC. procedural law. Look at IPC, it's a substantive law. Evidence Act, it's a substantive law. Substantive law and procedural law should be looked upon when you are reaching out a justice before the court of law. Otherwise, the entire process will be, incomplete. So therefore, you have to wait sometimes when you are reaching out justice before the court of. Take for an example, especially in rape cases, there is a process that you should understand. Molestation, teasing, marital rape or gang rape or normal rape, whatever it could be. Rape is rape as far as section 375 and 376 of the Indian Penal Code as such. There is a process you have to wait when you are seeking justice before the court of law. Yeah. Some more observations? Yeah. Some more questions? You can. You are liberal.
Any question? Ask.
Yeah.
Participant.
Do you have some more questions?
Sir, namaste.
Namaste.
Sir,
ಹೇಳಿ ಹೇಳಿ.
especially in the degree